Hey everyone, it's Stephanie here, and today I have a video to share a card that I created using the Simon Says Stamp Ice Cream Dream stamp set and some papers from the Bo Bunny Lemonade 6x6 paper pad. So for this card, the main thing we're going to use is this stamp set, and we're going to particularly use the ice cream cone. I wanted to do a cone where we have a bunch of different scoops of ice cream stacked on top of one another. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and stamp this onto a piece of Neenah Solar White cardstock. And you don't need to stamp the whole image, but you do want to make sure that when you are stamping it, you're using an ink that will work with Copics if that's the medium that you want to use to color your ice cream scoops. So that's what I'm going to be using here. So I'm just going ahead and stamping this onto the paper with Memento Tuxedo Black ink. And as I go along, I'm just going to kind of stamp just the top area of the ice cream cone. And I'm not being too careful. I'm going to end up cutting all of these out, so I'm not worried at all about how neat or they look or anything like that. Just make sure you don't overlap the images and give enough space to do some cutting once you're done. So to color them, I usually pick around 3 different colors. For this one here, I'm doing like an aqua colored ice cream scoop. I don't really know if there's actually aqua ice cream, but I'm sure in all the flavors somewhere there is. So I decided I wanted to have this in my ice cream cone. So I'm just going ahead and doing the coloring. So I just started with the lightest color, added a medium color starting at the bottom, and then put a very darker color at the very bottom and kind of pull that up into the top area of the ice cream scoop. And I'm just going to go ahead and blend that around until I'm happy with the color. And then I'm going to go ahead and continue to do this with the rest of the cones and some different colors of Copic markers to achieve some different colored ice cream scoops. So now I have them all finished here. I used some pinks and some purples, and I ended up doing 2 scoops in the aqua, 2 in the pink, and then 1 contrasting in the purple. And now I'm going to go ahead and emboss the bottom area of the ice cream cone onto a piece of vellum. So what I'm using is the Brick Antiquities embossing powder. I thought this would look kind of neat as the ice cream cone because it's a really textured, multicolored embossing powder that's supposed to mimic brick when you're done with it, but I just thought it would be a nice cool way to mimic an ice cream cone. So you can see there, I don't know if you can see the great texture and the mix of colors, but it's just very realistic looking in real life, and I really like how it turned out. But because it's plain vellum underneath of it, I just went ahead and flipped it upside down and used a Copic marker and just added some color to the background area of the ice cream cone. It doesn't add a ton of color, but it just adds enough that it looks like the entire ice cream cone is brown instead of having a clear frosted look on the inside area. So now I want to add a little bit of texture to the top of these ice cream cone scoops. So what I'm doing is I'm just adding a little bit of adhesive to a piece of scratch paper, and I'm adhering all of the scoops directly on top of the adhesive areas that I'm putting on there. And this is just kind of a placeholder to keep them still while I'm doing the next part of the card. And what that is using this Goosebumps texture liquid stuff. It usually comes in a spray. This is the dabber form. And what it does is it leaves a shimmery texture finish to wherever you're applying it. I think you're supposed to actually apply it to stamps or stencils, but I like to apply it directly to the paper and just let it dry on top of the area that I want to add the texture to. I used it recently in another video to create a really cool background image, and this is pretty much the same idea. I'm just going ahead and dabbing it directly onto the top areas of the ice cream scoops, and you can kind of see as I tilt it in the light, you can see the wet area and the little bit of texture. And I don't know if you can really pick up the shimmer, but there's definitely a shimmer in there as well. And what I like to do is kind of just look at it from an angle and kind of dab over top again if I see any areas that have a little bit of an air bubble. So feel free to kind of play around with it while it's still wet, and it will dry relatively fast. But while those are drying, I'm going to go ahead and do the sentiment. So I went ahead and just stamped All You Need Is Ice Cream with VersaFine black ink onto the vellum and just clear emboss that with clear embossing powder. That's my favorite way to achieve black embossing because it's clean and doesn't create a big mess like black embossing powder does. So now I've cut down a piece of the pattern paper. It kind of has a bokeh image to it where you have like the different contrasting dots of light in the background, and I'm going to layer that underneath of my vellum piece, and I'm going to add all of the top areas of the ice cream onto there. So now as you can see, as it's dry, you can see it's kind of bumpy and shiny, and this is a completely dry piece now, so it's just really neat. You can see this great texture and kind of a shiny shimmery finish that you leave on top of the ice cream scoops. Just a fun way to kind of make it look a little bit more realistic and like ice cream. So now that I have them all dry, I've taken them off of the placeholder sheet there. Now I'm just using regular adhesive to go ahead and add those directly on top of my ice cream cone area. So I just started with a pink color. My pencil there is just to kind of give me a guide as how far up I can go with my scoops so that I don't go off the top of the card. And now I'm just going to keep adding on the ice cream scoops. And I just started with pink and then went to the aqua, put the purple in the middle area, and then just repeated the aqua and the pink once again, and kind of tilted them a little bit as I added them on so they weren't perfectly straight. So now I have this really great stacked ice cream with this fun texture and shimmery shine on all of the different ice cream scoops. So now that I have that done, I'm just going to go ahead and finish assembling the card. What I did here is I just kind of figured out where I wanted to put some sequins on the finished card. And the reason I did this is because I'm going to adhere them on first before I actually adhere the vellum. And this will allow me to have some areas that I can apply adhesive to the vellum and you're not going to see it. So by applying the sequins first, it just gives me an idea of where I can freely put adhesive and it's not going to be seen because the sequins are going to cover it. So I'm just using glossy accents and just going around and dipping the sequin in and then adding them on. And then I'll fully let those dry before I go ahead and adhere the vellum piece onto the card. And that's what I'm doing here now. So I'm using just a stamp runner on the back area of the ice cream cone because it's a big enough area to allow the adhesive. And then I'm just going to use a glue pen. This is just liquid glue. And just take my time and kind of slowly go around all of the areas where the sentiments are, as well as the sequin areas, and just add some dots of glue. And this will allow the different areas in the center part of the vellum to completely adhere down onto the card. The vellum is a little bit tricky when you're working with it and you need to adhere it down just because adhesive does tend to show through. So this is a really easy way to kind of mask that. And once the card is finished and everything dries, you won't even see any of this adhesive on the finished card at all. It'll be completely hidden in behind those sequins and that wording. And then once I have that on there, normally you can just kind of trim the vellum off the top and bottom area of the card, but since there's not a lot of adhesive in the top area, I don't want the vellum to be kind of flopping off of the page. So what I like to do here is I just take my bone folder and my scoring board and I just lay my card down and I just go ahead and score along the top area and the bottom area of the card where the vellum is kind of hanging over there. And then I just flip the card over and add a little bit of adhesive on the edge and just fold that vellum over and adhere it directly on top. You will have a little bit of vellum showing either on the back area of the card or the inside of the card, but my view is it's a handmade card and I just really like to be able to really secure that vellum down and not have it kind of coming off of the card. And if it really bothers you, you could go ahead and just take another piece of cardstock that's the same size as the card and layer it on top so that that vellum piece would sandwich in between. But you can see here now that it's fully adhered and you have no issues. And then to complete the card, I just went ahead and rounded all four corners and added some turquoise liquid pearls to the centers of all of the sequins. So thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time.